Hey everyone. The book of Revelation is absolutely packed with some of the most powerful and, let's be honest, mysterious imagery out there. Today we're going to try and crack one of its most debated puzzles. Just who are the two witnesses?
So yeah, who are these two figures? It's a question that has sparked debate for centuries. But the source material we're digging into today, well, it offers a really detailed theory that connects a whole bunch of puzzle pieces. Let's see how they build their case.
Okay, here's our plan. We'll start by talking about why this mystery is such a big deal in the first place. Then, we'll get into the source's big claim about who they are and check out the biblical clues they use. After that, we'll cover their mission, their really dramatic fate, and of course, why any of this matters.
Right, so let's set the stage. According to our source, the two witnesses aren't just some minor detail. Nope, they argue that this is the key to unlocking the entire book of Revelation. If you get this part right, everything else starts to click into place.
The thinking here is that if you misunderstand this one chapter, you could totally derail your understanding of the book's entire message. It's kind of like a master key. It can either open up the whole story or lock it up tight.
All right, so let's get right to it. Who does our source claim these witnesses really are? I think the answer might actually surprise you.
So a lot of conventional views say we're talking about two literal people. Maybe prophets like Moses and Elijah making a comeback. But this source says, hold on, two isn't a head count. They believe it's actually a symbol for a much, much larger group, the 144,000 servants of God mentioned elsewhere in Revelation.
And this quote right here, it nails down their core argument. The source is saying these aren't two different groups. They're one and the same, on the same mission. So, the two witnesses, they're not two people, but a huge, unified body of believers.
Okay, so how in the world do they make that connection? Well, they argue you can't just read chapter 11 all by itself. You've got to connect the dots, picking up clues scattered across a few different chapters, kind of like putting together a giant puzzle.
So, first off, who are these 144,000? Well, the text describes them as a very specific group of God's servants. They're sealed, which basically means they're divinely protected for a special job during the really chaotic end times. They're set apart for a reason.
Now this is where the timeline they've pieced together gets really interesting. First, back in chapter 6, they reinterpret the rider on the white horse. Instead of a conqueror, they say it's these servants kicking off their mission. Then, in chapter 7, that same group gets officially identified and sealed for protection. And finally, in chapter 10, there's this scene of eating a scroll, which they say symbolizes these servants getting their official orders to prophesy. See, it's not three random events, but one single story that flows right into the two witnesses in chapter 11.
Okay, so we've got their identity and their commission. But what's their actual mission? What are they supposed to do, and for how long?
The book is super specific about this. Their public ministry lasts for exactly 1,260 days. That's 3.5 years. And during that whole time, they are given incredible divine power and authority to get their message out to the world.
Our source fits this mission into that famous 7-year tribulation timeline. It all kicks off, they argue, when a powerful world leader called the Beast signs a 7-year treaty. And look at the timeline, that 1,260-day mission of the witnesses, it makes up the entire first half of that period. Their death is the crucial midpoint, which then clears the way for the Beast's power to go unchecked for the final 3.5 years.
So this mission doesn't just fade away. The source paints a picture of an unbelievably dramatic, very public climax to their work here on Earth.
And here's the major turn. After exactly 1,260 days, that divine protection they had, it's lifted. And that same world leader they've been speaking out against, the beast from the abyss, is finally allowed to attack and kill them, silencing their message for good. Or so it seems.
But their death isn't hidden away. Oh no, their bodies are left out in the open, in the streets of a major city, and the whole world celebrates. People are literally sending each other gifts because, from their point of view, these voices that tormented them with prophecy are finally gone.
And then comes the ultimate plot twist. After 3.5 days, the spirit of life from God re-enters them. They stand up, a loud voice from heaven calls out, and as all their enemies watch in absolute terror, they rise up into heaven in a cloud. Just imagine seeing that.
The impact is immediate and devastating. Right after this incredible ascension, the story says a massive earthquake hits the city. And a very specific number, 7,000 people are killed. You can bet the world's celebration turned to sheer terror in an instant.
Now, that is a very detailed and complex way to read all of this, but why is it so important to the source? I mean, this is about way more than just solving some ancient riddle.
You see, for the author, the whole point is to change how we see prophecy. Instead of it being this terrifying script of doom and gloom, is presented as a story of hope, of divine protection, and ultimately, salvation. It's meant to be a call to action, something that gives believers a sense of purpose right now and a reason to really strengthen their faith.
This quote really just sums up their entire approach. The core belief here is that the number one message of Revelation isn't supposed to be terror, it's about the triumph of God and the hope that comes with it. And in their view, any interpretation that doesn't deliver that hope has completely missed the point.
And that kind of brings us to a much bigger question, right? When you look at all these different interpretations, what does our fascination with decoding ancient texts really say about us? What does it tell us about that deep human need to find patterns, to find meaning, and especially to find hope when the future feels so uncertain? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.